The following is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised.
Thank you so much for downloading this episode of So What Do You Really Do, the podcast where I, your host, Dead Air Dennis Maurer, speak with artists and entertainers about their day job, and this is another incident where that's not it. Instead of day jobs, I am speaking with comedian Joel Kim Booster about workout routines and some other things, festivals, comedy, growing up and stuff like that, all right, so this is what happened. All right, first and foremost, this is another interview, the podcast episode brought about my articles and interviews for the DigBoston newspaper. Joel Kim will be at Laugh Boston, headlining Laugh Boston, June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. For tickets, go to laughboston.com or check one of the links in the description. So I had the opportunity to interview him, and what had happened was I went out for a hike in the middle of the woods, and I was late to the interview because I got lost in the middle of the woods. So his publicist is calling me or texting me, and I'm driving and trying to voice text back, and I'm yelling at Siri, and I'm like, I'm on my way. And I also didn't have enough time to do a lot of prep. I did a little bit prior to it, and I expected to do some before the phone call, and I didn't have that opportunity. So as I'm getting there and I'm getting set up, because I'm not even like I'm frantic, and I decide to just ask him about working out, like as a filler to give my brain some time to figure out what's going on. And I was just like, so, since I just came from my workout, is working out important to you? And I expected him just to go, oh, no, I hate it. And then we can lament about how much exercise sucks. That is not what happened. No, he loves lifting weights and exercising, and we talk extensively about it, which you will hear. And I think it's a good, fun, interesting conversation. He goes into his routines and some of the things that, some funny stories, and what it means to him, which is an important thing. And we talk about other things. So if you're a workout phobe, don't worry, it's not the entire podcast. It's just brief, but it's good. I think it's interesting. I think it's something abnormal, but still interesting. It's something that somebody, and you'll see why I say this sentence. It's something that I don't think anyone ever else has asked him about in an interview. And it's something that I think got to show who he is and what he's about as a person. So it's going to be fun. It's a fun interview. I enjoyed it. If you're in the Boston area, please go see Joel Kim Booster at Laugh Boston, June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. One show, and 2 shows on Saturday. Links in the description, like I said earlier, which, in case you already forgot it, or you skip past it and you landed here. By the way, if you came here, there's no periods when I talk. I just keep going. If you're new to the podcast, thanks so much. I appreciate you coming here from DigBoston because we're tagging it at the bottom. Listen to the full unedited interview right here. Normally on the show, I speak with not only comedians, but other artists, entertainers about what they do to make a living, which we will return to that in the next podcast, I'm pretty sure. I got a local friend of mine who I've been wanting to sit down and talk with, and what I'm doing there is I'm reverse engineering it. What I've been doing as to create content for the podcast and to satisfy my obligations to the newspaper, and by obligation I means the shit I got to do so they'll pay me, is do these not do these. I mean, I choose who I interview. So I do these interviews to write these articles for them, and then I've been asking the publicist that represents them if it's okay that I've released a phone call as a podcast. Some have been no, some have been yes. This is a yes, clearly. I don't want to be sued because I have nothing to offer. I will just go to jail. They'll sue me and I'll go to jail. And I'll work in a dump yard for $5 a day. Anyway, that sounded all too real because it is. All right, so here's the point. I would take the interviews meant for the newspaper, and then I would send them out as a podcast. Hopefully, in the next episode or two, what I did is I did the opposite. I recorded the podcast the way that I normally do, with a normal focus, and I'm going to try to turn that into an article. So I want to see if I can do that. I'm challenging myself as a writer and journalist there. Sorry, this is a podcast. You did not see my finger quotes. I talk extensively about how I'm not good at what I'm doing and how this is all a sham. But I do take this seriously, and it's something that I'm glad DigBoston approached me about, because it's something that I've been wanting to do, I'm trying to do. It's a combination of a lot of things, though, and it brings some legitimacy to my career, I think. Alrighty. So, again, if you came here for the first time, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. If you enjoy what you hear, please do me a favor. Head over to however you found this, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and leave a review. Throw some likes up in there or stars or whatever, because what it will do is if you came here because you're a fan of Joel Kim Booster or somebody else, if you share this and leave reviews, it will actually help the aggregators that share podcasts with people and recommend podcasts to people. It'll actually share this podcast with more people. So more listeners, more exposure for your people for the people that you came here to enjoy. And, for me, I mean, that's a side effect of it. I'm doing this. I don't want to sound weirdly altruistic and say, oh, I'm just doing this podcast for them. But it's the interesting artists that I want to showcase on here. It's not about me. If I could get somebody else to host this thing and who is good at it and would do it, hand it over. Probably not. Actually, I'm a control freak. A little bit. Not really. But if I wanted somebody, if there was somebody else who could do it and I could produce it, or vice versa or whatever, I would totally hand the reins over. But this is the subject that I chose, and it's something that brings me joy. So there it is. Speaking of joy, that's just a couple letters away from Joel. And speaking of Joel Kim Booster. That was, oh my God, that was so very Rodgers and Hammerstein. Oh, that was like, you guys are playing pool, and that starts with P, and that rhymes with T, and that stands for trouble. This town's got trouble, and lots of it. Okay. I've been talking a lot about musicals recently and theater because I have a couple things coming up myself. Real quick, one of them is All the Great Books Abridged, which is a comedic play that I am starring in Saturday, June 23rd at the Regent Underground Theater in Arlington, Massachusetts. Tickets are $15, and you can find information at theregenttheater.com. Theater spelled the British way, and that means TRE at the end, or just go to my website that you're currently already on, deaderdennis.com, links in the description. Information is there as well. And Monday, June 25th, free comedy show, Capo in South Boston. I will be on it. Kendra Lansbury will be on it. Boston comedy finalist Zachary Brazow will be on it, and I think Dan Crone and somebody else, all hosted by the funny Will Noonan. So should be a good time, great food, free comedy. Be there June 25th. 8 p.m. And for other shows and information on everything, you can go to deadairdennis.com, deaddennis.com. Thank you for listening if you're new. Thank you for returning if you're not new. And please enjoy this episode with comedian and gym rat, Joel Kim Booster.
Hello?
Hi, mate. Mr. Joel Kim Booster, please.
Yeah, this is Tim.
Hi, Mr. Booster. It is Dennis from DigBoston. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
All right, good. Sorry, I'm a little late. My workout at the gym ran a little bit over, and I'm very much out of breath because I'm very fat.
No worries.
So, let's ask that. What's the first question since we're on the subject? As a comedian who's on the road, do you work out, and is working out important to you?
Yeah, it's very important to me. I usually do try and find. It's one of my two favorite things to do to sort of get a sense of a town. Is I like to go and to a gym, try and find a non-chain gym, somewhere wherever I am, and work out there while I'm there. And also, usually I like to try and find the grossest gay bar and sit there by myself in the town.
Okay.
Especially if it's a small town. Especially if it's a town say where I am right now in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That's always the gems of gay bars are always in this smaller town.
Okay, so is that the seediest, dirtiest gay bars are the ones that are in small towns?
Yeah, I wouldn't say seedy and or dirty, but when you are
I meant in a positive way.
Town, yeah. When you're in a smaller town, places out, in Maine or in Indiana, something like that, there's usually one gay bar, in 5 counties. And so there's a real sense of community that sort of gets missed when you're in a larger city because there's so many gay bars and so many different, sort of subgroups within the gay community. And so it's really nice to go to these small towns and find these gay bars where it is the one hub of activity in a 100-mile radius that people sort of flock to and find, that community to. It makes me feel like I'm in the 70s,
Yeah, so basically you want to find the one that is making up for the the square footage that, or the square mileage that the regular city would have with more of them. Does that make sense? You're fitting what should be 5 gay bars into one because there's not.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's concentrated gay barness. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. I didn't think the word gay was going to pop up this many times this early in the interview, but that's okay. I didn't want to open with, so you're gay. Tell me, but I didn't want to be Sally.
Right.
I didn't want to be 1987 Sally Jesse Raphael. So
No. Yeah, I brought it there.
Yes.
Let the record show that I'm the one who brought it up first.
I will have to make sure I print that way. So you're in Tennessee right now. Are you doing a show in Tennessee, or is it just another reason you're in Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm performing at the Bonnaroo Music Festival.
Oh, is that this weekend?
They have two little comedy tents set up for us as well. So
is this your?
We are sort of alternative programming.
Now, is this your first time at Bonnaroo or doing comedy at a large festival?
This is definitely not my first time doing it at a large festival. This is my first time doing it at Bonnaroo.
Okay, what's the vibe? Because you hear stories. I do some small outdoor comedy shows, and there's a different vibe than in a club or in a bar. Doing a giant festival show like Bonnaroo or the ones you've done before, how's the vibe different than doing a club? In your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's definitely less intimate. And the thing is about like doing specifically a music festival as opposed to a large comedy festival like JFL or Clusterfest or Sketchfest or something like that, is that those kind of festivals, like generally speaking, a lot of people have come out to see, they'll come to my show because they want to see me specifically. And at music festivals, and that's the same at a club too. But at music festivals, it's a lot more of like proving why they're taking a break from the main attraction of the festival to come and see this comedy show. So it's usually you're meeting a lot of people who A, have no fucking clue who you are, and B, probably aren't super well versed in what watching a comedy show is. So there's or even what stand-up comedy is. So there's a little bit of like a barrier there that you have to get past. That's a little bit more challenging in some ways at a music festival like this or Outside Lands or Warped Tour or anything like that, to sort of prove that you're worth seeing.
That's a great answer. Okay, let me go back to workouts since I wrote as I was running in here on my notepad. I just wrote a bunch of workout questions, and the only question I really want to is there a particular, because you had mentioned it's very important to you. Is there a particular regiment or a particular workout thing that you find is particularly good for you?
Yeah. So I do just a pretty standard push-pull leg routine, like split, focusing on like major lifts. Like I do, all of my workouts are built around a squat, a bench, or a deadlift, and then sort of hitting accessory work after I finish those. So yeah, that's like pretty much the main focus for me for the last couple of years. I am I'm an asthmatic, so I rarely do cardio, and I will sometimes like do a yoga class to sort of like, stay flexible and not stiff and stuff like that. But that's mostly it. So it's that's tough because like sometimes if I'm in a scenario where there are no gyms within like a 50-mile radius, I have to use a hotel gym, which is like sort of famously not super helpful if you're looking to do like major lifts. Like usually the dumbbells will go up like to 55 maybe, and that's it. And so it's a little bit more of like figuring out how to adjust your workouts for that sort of environment. But yeah, that's what I usually focus on.
Okay. So being asthmatic, you don't do cardio, you don't do yoga. Is there ever that situation where you're doing something and you're breathing entirely? I've never had asthma, so all I know is, the one kid in school who has it, and he has an inhaler. Yeah. Is there ever been that situation where you're just, you're doing the workout and you're breathing entirely too hard, and someone like gives you that look like newbie, or they make a comment about breathing heavily toward, and you're just like, look, I'm asthmatic. Or is there a good?
You know what?
story
I've
you
never
channeled
gotten
something
that. I rarely get super out of breath in my workouts because it's mostly lifting, so it's not super taxing on my lungs or anything like that. Sometimes if I'm working with a trainer and I'm doing like super high density like circuit work or something like that, like I usually will have my inhaler on hand because that will probably be as close to cardio as I'll get. But no, people are generally like, I think I don't ever. I mean, whenever I get to that place of breathing heavy or whatever, it's because I'm clearly doing like pretty intense workouts. So I don't get a ton of judgment, and I don't feel a lot of like. I'm not usually focused on that. Like I puff on the inhaler sometimes at the gym, and I like truly don't care who sees or who thinks it's like weird, because it's like, this is why we're all here, like to do this, and I'm, just helping myself along. So I haven't, if people have shot me looks, I have not noticed. And I try, it's like one of the rare moments in my life at the gym where I like am truly pretty like tunnel vision about like other strangers noticing what I'm doing or what I'm wearing.
Okay.
I've been trapped under a bench press so many times in my life that I think I'm immune to embarrassment at the gym.
Yeah. Just you fell off of it, or you dropped the weights on yourself?
No. I've just been, last set, last rep, like just like can't get that bar up, and it's just sort of sitting, chilling on my chest, waiting for someone to notice long enough for me to like, help me, give me a spot so I can get the bar off my chest. It's not always great, and sometimes there aren't people around, and you sort of have to like tip it over. I should be using like the clip to keep the weights on. That makes it easier, but I just have to dump the weight off sometimes, like a real amateur.
Oh, that's that. I've dropped weights on my chest. I was doing a bench press once and listening to Kathleen Madigan and laughed so hard I dropped it right on my chest. Lucky it was like
that
40 pounds.
I
was like nothing.
But I've been doing. One time I did I was doing like skull pressure, for my triceps, and just like lifting that weight above my face, and laughed so hard at how did this get made? It was like something either Diane Rayfield or Jason Mantzoukas said that made me drop the weight right on my face, and it was a very painful welt on my forehead for many weeks.
I mean, if you're a comedian and someone hurts themselves working out listening to yourself, it's got to be the biggest compliment, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I hope I have caused any number of workout injuries through either my album or my appearances on many podcasts. So I can only dream that someone has injured themselves laughing at something I said.
Are you a podcast or a music workout listener?
Weirdly, I am a nothing listen workout person now. I usually I find that I can get through everything quicker, and I think shorter breaks if I'm not listening to anything but whatever crap the gym is playing, and sort of like absorbing, everything around me. I was a pretty even split before I moved out to LA, but I find that I'm pretty good about not listening to anything right now.
Okay. Let's switch gears. Or I guess, I don't know. It's not switching gears because, it's switching gears. That was going to be a bad joke there. But relationships. As a man who's on the road a lot, is it difficult? I don't know if this is going to be a hack question because nobody ever interviews me for my comedy or my relationships. Is it, for you, both a man and a gay man, is it difficult maintaining a relationship on the road? Is it better maintaining smaller relationships on the road for you?
Wow.
Do you find it different than your straight comedian friends?
I haven't been in a relationship in so long that, and I think it's definitely harder. I mean, for me to start a relationship with my schedule, I mean, I'm gone like every 2 weekends, and then, it's tough, especially when you are based in a major city. People's attention spans, are short, and there's a lot of people and there's a lot of options for them. And if you're not there and you're not putting in the work, then they'll sort of, move elsewhere. And I found that's happened to me a lot. I mean, it definitely kept me from getting into relationships, I think, is because of the traveling schedule. But, that's, I think, why a lot of my straight comedian friends are dating other comedians. I think because you have to find someone who understands and sort of gets the schedule and gets the lifestyle. Because, even when I am in LA, 5 out of 7 nights in LA are busy. I'm busy with shows. And, when I was in New York, it was 7 out of 7 nights I was busy with shows.
Yeah.
And I had to make a real effort to, not book a show, which is really hard. I mean, for me, I am 30 now, which is so hard to vocalize. It's so hard to say that out loud.
You're
when I was
what now?
younger, it was less of a concern.
I'm sorry, can
because,
you? I didn't. There was a problem with the phone line, so I don't want to make you have to say the thing over again. That makes you embarrassed.
I can't
but I
believe
didn't
you're
catch
making
it.
me
I'm
say it
sorry.
again.
I want to make
am
sure that I have it for
30.
the recording. You're 30.
Yeah.
Oh, 30.
I'm
Oh,
30
that's it.
now.
I thought it was something. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. You're 30. Okay.
No.
Fair enough.
It's a little bit more. What I mean to say is that it's a little bit more present in my mind now that sort of had a serious long-term relationship in my 20s. I never did because I was pretty focused on doing this. I've always been hyper focused on career stuff, and comedy especially I think requires a lot of focus and a lot of time put in. And when I was in my early 20s, it was I got to hit these open mics, I got to be hanging out, I got to be making these connections. And now that I've done that, you sort of think when you're starting out that eventually it'll get easier and you'll have more time. And it's the complete opposite is the case. And now I'm just, not only busy, but out of the city where I'm living. So it is harder to forge those relationships. And unfortunately, unlike my straight counterparts, there aren't a lot of us to choose from.
Yeah.
If I wanted to date another comedian, there's only, 20 some that I can choose from right now.
20.
And
I thought it was you and Ant, and that's about it. No, I'm kidding.
There's a ton of us right now.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good time.
Well, I mean, here in Boston, we have
Right.
between gay men and lesbian and between the whole LGBT, QVC, R2D2 spectrum here in Boston, we probably have 24 performing comedians in that spectrum, which is, I would say, is a lot for any one city, but across the board, I think that's very.
No, definitely.
That's a
lot.
lot.
That's way more than when I was coming up in Chicago. Obviously in New York there was a ton that, that's where I really started to meet, other gay comedians. But yeah, so I don't really have that option available to me, nor do I. I'm sort of glad. I don't understand people who can date other comedians. It seems like a nightmare to me, especially the breakup. I mean, just having to hear jokes written about your relationship seems like, the fifth circle of hell to me.
I'm on the same page. Can't put my pen in the company ink.
Yeah.
So do you find yourself doing more, gearing towards more of app-based dating and short relationships?
Yeah. Oh,
Tinder,
for sure.
Grindr,
I'm on 17 different dating apps, and
oh my God.
I
didn't even know there was 17 different dating apps.
There's tons. But
I didn't know there was 10. I know there's Tinder where I send a girl a dick pic, and I know there's Bumble where if I match with a woman, she has to send me a dick pic first. So
right.
Okay. All right, sorry, I shouldn't do material.
But yeah, no, I'm on all the apps. I especially like it. It's useful for when you're traveling too. Especially, like I said, these small towns. Like if I'm in a place without a gay bar, like Grindr is sort of the de facto alternative there in terms of meeting guys in a city. And I'm a traditional road dog comedian in that I love to meet guys in the cities that I'm in and then leave and never see them ever again, just disappear into the mist. So that is a familiar trope, I think, for our profession.
Yeah, setting up a port in every city.
Yeah, exactly.
So you, unlike a lot of comedians, do you feel that you have a open, unawkward-esque personality when it comes to meeting people, or has comedy helped you with that?
I don't necessarily think. It depends on the person. It depends on the setup. I think a lot of people actually get a little disappointed when they meet me after a show because obviously, I am a very close approximation of who I am on stage, but it is much more blown out. It is a much sort of exaggerated almost caricature of who I actually am. And it's only, 30% of my inner life that they're seeing on stage. And I think people, because my comedy is very personal and very, I'm very honest about a lot of aspects of my life on stage, I think people have a sense of familiarity with me off stage that makes me uncomfortable sometimes, because they're not really getting to know me on stage. They're getting to know a very curated side of me. And I'm actually I wouldn't say awkward, but I am a little bit more quiet when I first meet somebody. I am a little bit more introverted than I think people assume, especially in big social situations. So I think, I definitely don't think I'm more or less awkward. I think I'm probably on the average of people, of meeting people after shows and being awkward in social situations as a normal comedian. But, yeah.
Would you, if you were at a party by yourself, would you have the ability to walk up and make conversation with just any person at the party for the most part?
No, actually, I
would
probably make do, but the chances of me going to a party by myself where I don't know anybody is so slim that feels like something I would never, ever, ever want to do. That it's hard for me to imagine doing that. I've definitely been in situations. Listen, if I have to network, if it's like an industry thing, then yes, I will do that because, again, I am a career-obsessed psychopath. So I will do it. I will force myself to do it in those situations, like if I'm at a festival situation where I don't really know any other comedians. But if it's like a social thing, especially if it's like other gay people, the chances are so slim that I will feel comfortable going to that party and talking to strangers by myself. So probably not. But
yeah, that sounds about the average. And the reason I ask it is I don't fall in that average. I have no problem walking up to somebody and just starting a conversation, whether I want to or not sometimes. But I can also be introverted and not want to talk to people, but I still have that ability to go and talk to people if I'm all by myself. I do a lot of things by myself because, well, let's face it, I have a sparkling personality, I said with finger quotes. So I find it interesting when I can find another comedian or performer who has the ability to also not be awkward and just go out and talk to people. And I think it's even more interesting to find the people who started out awkward and then learned almost as if it's a parlor trick, the art of having conversation with strangers because they perform or because they do stand up, which you kind of sound like that. I would imagine. Does that sound similar?
I mean, the thing is crowd work is a big part of my longer sets. Like when I'm headlining, a good chunk of it is usually spent with me talking to the audience and riffing on, what they're saying. And that is such a specific, I think people expect because I'm so free with talking to people, doing crowd work that's how I'd be at a party. But there's such a specific power dynamic when I'm on stage and I have the mic and I'm selecting the people that I want to speak to and they sort of are forced to talk to me. Otherwise they're, will make things worse for them. So I think, that I think is the key. I often feel very, especially if people don't know who I know what I am or what I do. There is this sense as a comedian where you're always sort of having to prove no, I'm not a hobbyist. This is the living that I make. And it's that's, especially in LA at parties, that is constantly sort of the battle that you're fighting of being oh yeah, I'm a comedian. And then having to prove that, no, I'm not also a waiter. That's what I'm doing,
It's similar. Yeah. I feel you on that. I don't know if you know who Steve Sweeney is, but here in Boston, he's a big-time comedian, national guy. And I opened up for him at some other thing that was comedy. I was hosting it. And I go to the comedy, he asked me, he goes, how long have you been doing comedy? I was 7 years. And he goes, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm not a schmuck that they just pulled off the street. I've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel you on that when you're I'm a stand-up. Okay, so where do you wait tables? Or where do you which Starbucks do you work at? So I understand you on that. And let's go back to young Joel Kim Booster and say, what was it that made you gear toward? I feel like this is a standard question I should ask everybody, but let's ask you. What is it that skewed a young Joel Kim Booster to stand-up comedy?
I never had dreams or aspirations to be a comedian when I was growing up. It wasn't until probably after college even that I thought it was something that I had to offer to the world. I think, I've always been funny, or people have told me that I've been funny. I've always liked to make people laugh. And I think, it's a pretty standard reason why. I mean, growing up in a town where you're different, whether that be because I'm Asian or, later
Wait,
when
you're
I came
what?
out and I was gay as a gay high school student, it becomes a defense mechanism, I think, to sort of deflect from the fact that you're different and to sort of use it in a way that sort of makes people socially comfortable around you. And so I think, like most kids who are different like that, a lot of them develop that. And I think, that's where a lot of my comedic instincts come from, is developing that instinct as a child and to try to deflect away from it. And it wasn't until, I was after college and seeing comedians like Tig Notaro and Kumail and other people who sort of, felt like it was more for me at that point. Because when I was in high school, I loved Dane Cook, and I've worked with him since, and he is a great comedian. But there was nothing about that. That was the comedian. That was like the big marquee comedian of my coming of age moments. And there was nothing about what Dane was doing that said, like, oh, this is something that is for you. This is something that you should try to do. And so, it just never occurred to me until I started seeing more comedians who sort of, who seemed more sort of on my level in terms of talk. I was interested in hearing about, and the way they presented their acts and things like that, sort of made me give it a second thought.
So there wasn't, I'm always interested on people's influence, especially when they have I'm a cis white male. Apparently I'm everywhere. What I grew up looking at, 227, the Jeffersons. I just spoke with Scott Thompson very recently from Kids in the Hall, and talking to him about how watching somebody, even as a straight white male, watching somebody who was so outlandishly, openly gay as he was as a comedian, and laughing how hard funny it was, it definitely had an effect on me. So I saw the world that way. Like growing up, I wanted to be Lucille Ball, which I've said 1,000 times, because I never saw a difference between what she was doing on TV and me. I never saw that gender was a difference, but other people did. Growing up, did you feel that there wasn't any representation for you, either as Korean or as Asian or as a gay man? Or was there somebody that you looked at and you're like, that's who my idol is?
Yeah, I mean, Margaret Cho was a huge outlier, and when I say that I did never see myself, I mean, her career wasn't as topping when I was sort of a teenager, but I remember seeing All American Girl for the first time when I was 7 or 8 years old. That was a huge moment for me because I'd never seen someone like myself represented on television. And I think people sort of scoff or roll their eyes when they hear things like that, but it really does have an effect on you when you're a little kid. To see not an Asian family on television is, and the fact is we haven't seen one since really until Fresh Off the Boat, which is sort of wild. I also remember that fucking Cinderella reboot that ABC did with Brandy and the Asian Prince. Those moments, those are some of the clearest memories I have of growing up, is seeing those two pieces of entertainment for the first time, because they were both moments where it was a full paradigm shift for me as a kid. And maybe that's a problem with my imagination. I don't know. There are plenty of kids who never saw themselves represented, had aspirations to do that. But I mean, seeing those two things made me want to be an actor, made me want to be in entertainment, and it was huge for me.
That's great. It's interesting because I grew up in Baltimore, where it's very diverse. So when I moved here to Boston, I was like, I've never been in such a white city as this place in my entire life. My cousin came up here for 2 months for work, and the first thing he said to me after 4 days was, "Where are all the black people? This is not right." So I find it interesting that, because I have a unique life, and I have to find the other people that have their unique lives. So, okay, I'm sure you've talked a ton about. Did you always know that you were adopted, or was there a time that you found out?
Yeah.
Okay, because I find it.
It's a pretty glaring difference.
Yeah.
I mean, as a kid, my parents, like, I knew I was adopted. I didn't necessarily know what that meant or care. I mean, 'cause my parents, they never really, it just never really made, I never felt that different within the context of my family. And being homeschooled too, like, you know, I wasn't around other kids who were constantly reminding me that I was different until later in life. So, you know, I didn't conceptualize it until I was like at a family reunion in Alabama that I really realized how different I was from the rest of my family.
Did you ever have like half the family treat you differently because you're Asian or adopted?
Nope, not a part of my adopted experience at all, which I feel very lucky about.
Oh, I didn't know. You are very lucky about that. That's awesome. Okay, and I think I have to jump back to one thing because I have terrible handwriting and can't read what I can't follow what I do. I was reading one of your year-end wrap-up dating blog posts recently, and I hate to say, can you tell me more about that? Because it sounds like it's not a question, it's a command. But I found that interesting. What inspired to do that? Because obviously in the, you know, in with gay men, there's a lot more acceptance of promiscuity than I think in the heterosexual dating world. So it's interesting that you can seemingly talk more about having multiple relationships without having a depressive or stigmatic, is that the right word? Stigmatic, a stigma to it.
Yeah, we don't have time to really get into it because I have to jump off soon. But
yeah, that's fine.
I challenge that idea that gay men in the gay community, promiscuity is more accepted because it's definitely, especially in the last several years, I think gay men are sort of rejecting that, and you get a lot of judgment within the community for representing the community poorly. I get a lot of flack. I'd say my biggest online trolls are gay men who think that I'm not representing the community well. I get a lot of messages from to that effect of I should stop talking about sex because that's what, you know, straight people think of us already, and I'm, you know, propping up a stereotype about gay men, and I'm just sort of living my life. And so that is a reaction to that in part. I think, you know, neither gay nor straight people talk that openly about that sort of stuff outside of the context of entertainment. And so it's important to me. And it's, you know, when I look this year, specifically the reason I did that is a pretty shitty year just wise. And I think, you know, looking back on the year, trying to like sort of summarize the important moments of my year, I sort of thought about all of those encounters and like just the of my love life in 2017. And I, you know, that's the way I process things now is through comedy. And that is how I chose to process my year this year was that.
All right, cool. And last thing I have for you, I ask everybody ever, you know, because I always grew up imagining interviews as a kid, and I always had that question that I want somebody to ask me, and nobody ever asked me. Is there a question that you've always had that you've wanted someone to ask you in an interview that you've wanted to talk about?
You know, it's crazy because you kind of did. Like, I talk about working out, and I was shocked when you asked me that question at the top. I'm like, why don't people ever ask my incredible body?
I mostly did it as a filler while I was jotting through my notes and getting them organized.
Well,
in case it just happened.
The best filler I've ever gotten, Dennis. I have to say, I could talk about it for forever, and I'm so happy that you asked me about it.
Oh, well, I'm glad I made you happy, sir. I hope you have are you about to head on stage at Bonnaroo?
Yeah, I'm about to,
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go do that. I'll see you in a couple weeks when you are in town, and I'll drop off a print copy to you, and you can send it to your parents or burn it or do whatever you want with it. And you go kick ass on stage. I hope this was good. You enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Have a great day, bud.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.